Hello and welcome to this English listening practice story. Today we are going on a journey with Alex, a young man who has a very important task ahead of him, his visit to the dentist. This story will help you practice your English listening skills as we go through Alex's day, step by step, in a slow and clear manner. You will hear detailed descriptions of his thoughts, surroundings, and actions, making it easy for you to understand and follow along. So sit back, relax, and let's begin our story. The golden morning sunlight streamed through the curtains, casting soft, warm patterns on the walls of Alex's bedroom. Outside, the world was already alive with the gentle sounds of nature. Birds chirped from the branches of a tall oak tree just outside his window, their melodies blending harmoniously with the distant hum of cars passing by. The soft rustling of leaves in the breeze made the morning feel peaceful. Yet inside, Alex felt far from calm. As he slowly opened his eyes, he let out a long sigh. Today was no ordinary day. Today he had a dentist appointment. Alex stared at the ceiling for a moment, feeling a small knot of nervousness in his stomach. He wasn't exactly afraid of the dentist, but the idea of sitting in that big chair, hearing the loud buzzing of dental tools, and not knowing exactly what was happening made him uneasy. He had heard people talk about sharp instruments and strange, minty-smelling pastes. He had even seen a few movies where characters ran out of the dentist's office in fear. No, he thought, shaking his head slightly. It won't be that bad. It's just a checkup. Nothing serious. Hopefully. He turned onto his side, pulling his blanket up a little higher, as if staying in bed just a little longer would make the appointment disappear. But deep down he knew he couldn't avoid it. From the kitchen, the familiar sound of clinking dishes and the faint aroma of coffee drifted into his room. His mother was already up, preparing breakfast. The house felt warm and cozy, a contrast to the anxious thoughts circling in his mind. Alex groaned and stretched his arms above his head, rubbing his eyes before finally forcing himself to sit up. He glanced at the clock on his bedside table. 7:30 a.m. His appointment was at 10 a.m., which meant he had just enough time to get ready without rushing. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and placed his feet on the cool wooden floor. The sensation sent a small shiver up his spine, fully waking him up. He took a deep breath, running a hand through his messy brown hair, and muttered to himself, "All right, let's do this." The morning sun bathed his room in light, making everything feel fresh and new. His bookshelf, filled with novels, a few comic books, and an old dictionary, stood neatly against the wall. A small desk sat in the corner with his laptop still open from the night before. The room was his safe space, a place where he felt comfortable. But today he had to step out of that comfort and face something he wasn't excited about: the dentist. As he stood up and stretched again, he tried to shake off the nerves. He reminded himself that going to the dentist was a good thing. It meant keeping his teeth healthy, avoiding future pain, and making sure everything was okay. He had promised himself that he would take better care of his teeth, and this appointment was a step in the right direction. He took a slow, deep breath and let it out. "Okay," he whispered to himself. "Time to start the day." Alex dragged himself to the bathroom, still feeling a little groggy. The bright overhead light flickered on as he stepped inside, making him squint for a moment before adjusting to the brightness. He turned on the faucet, splashing cold water on his face, letting the chill wake him up fully. Slowly he reached for his toothbrush, squeezing a ribbon of minty toothpaste onto the bristles. As he began brushing, he stared at his reflection in the mirror, his brown eyes, still a little sleepy, focused on his teeth. He wanted to make sure they looked as clean as possible before heading to the dentist. If my teeth look good, maybe the dentist won't find anything wrong, he thought, scrubbing a little harder. He moved the brush in circles over his front teeth, then reached the back molars, making sure to be thorough. The minty freshness filled his mouth, and for a moment he felt a little more confident. He rinsed and spit, then smiled at himself in the mirror. Not bad, he thought, turning his head slightly to check different angles. Maybe I'll get a compliment on my brushing skills. But then another thought crossed his mind. What if they still find a cavity? His smile faded slightly as he ran his tongue over his teeth. Everything felt smooth. But was that enough? Dentists always had a way of finding something you didn't even know was there. Shaking off the worry, Alex reached for his mouthwash, poured a small amount into the cap, and swished it around. The strong mint flavor made his eyes water a little, but it also made his breath feel extra fresh. He took one last look in the mirror before nodding to himself. All right, step one done. Next, he turned on the shower, letting the water run for a moment until it was warm. The sound of the water hitting the tiles filled the small bathroom, creating a calming rhythm. As he stepped under the warm stream, he felt the tension in his shoulders ease just a little. He lathered up his soap, taking his time washing away the sleepiness from his body. The steam rose around him, making the air feel thick and comforting. For a moment, he let himself relax, closing his eyes as the water ran down his face. It's just a routine checkup, he reminded himself. Nothing to be scared of. But no matter how many times he told himself that, the nervous feeling in his stomach wouldn't completely go away. After finishing his shower, he grabbed a towel and dried off, rubbing his hair vigorously until it stuck out in different directions. He walked back into his room, feeling fresher but still a little tense. Now came the next decision: what to wear. Alex opened his closet, scanning through his shirts. Should he go for something casual? Something a little nicer? Would the dentist even care? Probably not. He finally settled on a simple navy blue t-shirt and a pair of jeans. Comfortable, but not too sloppy. He slid on his socks and his favorite sneakers, then ran his fingers through his damp hair, attempting to smooth it down. Not bad, he thought, giving himself another glance in the mirror. All right, time for breakfast. As Alex walked into the kitchen, the smell of scrambled eggs and toast filled the air. His mother stood by the stove, flipping the last piece of toast onto a plate. The golden brown slices stacked neatly next to the eggs, looking warm and inviting. You should eat before you go, his mother said, placing the plate in front of him. Alex sat down at the table, staring at his breakfast. He knew he should eat, but his stomach felt tight with nerves. He picked up his fork, poking at the eggs absent-mindedly. What if they find a cavity? The thought looped in his mind again. What if they have to drill my teeth? He took a small bite, chewing slowly. The food tasted good, but he wasn't really enjoying it. His mother sat across from him, watching him with a knowing look. You're nervous, aren't you? She asked, sipping her coffee. Alex shrugged. A little. His mother smiled softly. It's just a checkup. They'll just clean your teeth and make sure everything looks good. And if they find something, it's better to fix it now than to wait until it hurts, right? Alex nodded, but he still wasn't convinced. He took another small bite of toast, chewing slowly, then pushed his plate away. "I'll just eat later," he muttered. His mother gave him a concerned look, but didn't push him to eat more. Alex glanced at the clock on the kitchen wall. 9:30 a.m. "I need to leave soon," he thought, feeling his heart beat a little faster. He stood up, grabbed his phone, and slipped it into his pocket. He double-checked that he had everything: his wallet, his house keys, and the reminder card for the appointment. His mother walked him to the door, giving him a reassuring pat on the back. "You'll be fine, Alex. Just breathe." He nodded, taking a deep breath. As he stepped outside, the sun was shining brightly and the air was warm. The street was quiet except for a few distant sounds of cars passing by. "All right," he said to himself, "let's get this over with." With that, he started his walk to the dentist's office, his heart still fluttering with nervous anticipation. Alex stepped outside, and the warm sun immediately touched his skin. It was a beautiful morning, the kind of morning that made people want to take long walks, enjoy a cup of coffee at an outdoor cafe, or sit in the park with a good book. But Alex wasn't thinking about any of that. His mind was too preoccupied with his dentist appointment. He walked down the sidewalk, his sneakers making a soft tap-tap sound against the pavement. Around him, the city was alive. People in business suits hurried past, some holding coffee cups, others checking their phones as they rushed to work. A woman in a bright red dress walked briskly, her heels clicking sharply against the ground. A man in a blue uniform rode past on a bicycle, a large backpack strapped to his shoulders, probably a delivery worker. Cars zoomed by, their engines humming, their tires screeching slightly as they came to a stop at the traffic lights. A group of school children, dressed in matching uniforms, laughed and chatted as they walked toward their school. Their voices were high and excited, full of energy that only children seemed to have in the morning. Alex, on the other hand, felt heavy. His mind kept running through the possibilities. What if I have a cavity? What if they have to use that loud drill? What if they tell me I need braces? He shuddered at the thought. Braces weren't the worst thing in the world, but he had heard horror stories from his friends about the pain, the difficulty eating, and the constant adjustments. "No, no, don't think about that," he muttered under his breath. He passed by a bakery, and the delicious scent of fresh bread filled the air. The golden loaves sat neatly in the display window, and inside, customers lined up to buy their morning pastries. Normally, the smell of warm croissants and chocolate-filled pastries would make his stomach growl, but today his nerves had taken away his appetite. Ahead, he saw the bus stop. A few people were already standing there, waiting. There was an elderly man wearing a gray jacket, leaning slightly on his cane. A teenage girl with earbuds in, scrolling through her phone. A mother with a small boy who kept bouncing excitedly, pulling on her hand. Alex sighed and checked the time on his phone. 9:45 a.m. The bus should be here any minute, he thought, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. The familiar whoosh of the approaching bus made Alex look up. The large vehicle pulled up in front of him, its doors opening with a soft hiss. The driver, an older man with glasses, gave a small nod to the passengers as they stepped on. Alex followed the others, tapping his bus card against the scanner. The machine beeped, approving his fare, and he moved down the aisle looking for a seat. Most of the good seats were taken. The elderly man had already settled into the priority seating near the front. The teenage girl had taken a window seat and was still glued to her phone. The mother and her son had found a seat together, and the little boy was pointing excitedly at things outside the window. Alex spotted an empty seat near the middle of the bus, right by the window. He quickly slid into it, placing his backpack on his lap. The bus lurched forward, and Alex leaned his head against the cool glass of the window. Outside, the city moved past him in a blur. He watched as they passed shops, restaurants, and office buildings. A man on a bicycle pedaled quickly past a row of parked cars. A street performer played the violin on the sidewalk, his case open for tips. A group of pigeons pecked at breadcrumbs near a cafe. The soft hum of the bus engine mixed with the chatter of passengers. Two women behind him were having a conversation about their weekend plans. A man in a business suit spoke quietly into his phone. The small boy a few rows ahead was still full of energy, pressing his hands and face against the window. Alex closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. Just a few more stops, he thought. He tried to distract himself by counting the buildings outside, but his mind kept drifting back to the dentist. He imagined sitting in the reclining chair, the bright light shining in his face, the dentist poking around in his mouth with sharp tools. Ugh, stop thinking about it. He shook his head slightly and focused on the rhythm of the bus. The gentle rocking, the occasional jolt when it stopped, the sound of the doors hissing open and closed. After what felt like both a long and short ride, he heard the automated announcement. Next stop, Elm Street, Bright Smiles Dental Clinic. His stomach tightened. As the bus pulled up to the stop, Alex took a deep breath, grabbed his bag, and stood up. He held on to the railing as the bus came to a stop, then stepped off onto the sidewalk. The sun was still shining brightly, but somehow the day felt a little less cheerful now. Right in front of him stood the building, Bright Smiles Dental Clinic. The large glass windows reflected the sunlight, and the sign above the entrance was painted in bright blue letters. A small image of a smiling tooth was placed next to the name, as if trying to make the place seem friendly. Yeah, right, Alex thought. Like that little tooth knows anything about how scary this place is. He swallowed hard and pushed open the glass door. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of mint. The waiting room was neat and quiet. The walls were painted a calming shade of light blue, and there were a few chairs lined up against the wall. A small table in the corner held a stack of magazines, old issues of National Geographic, Reader's Digest, and Parenting Weekly. A woman sat behind the reception desk, typing something on her computer. She looked up and gave him a polite smile. Good morning. Do you have an appointment? Alex nodded, his voice feeling stuck in his throat for a moment before he managed to say, yeah. Alex Carter. Kale Patumani. The receptionist clicked a few buttons on her screen, then nodded. All right, you're checked in. You can have a seat and the dentist will call you soon. Alex forced a small smile and turned toward the waiting area. He chose a seat near the corner, away from the few other people waiting. A man in a suit was scrolling on his phone. A mother was flipping through a magazine while her young daughter kicked her legs back and forth in her chair. Alex's eyes landed on a framed poster on the wall. It showed a smiling dentist holding up a toothbrush with big bold words underneath. Take care of your teeth and they will take care of you. Yeah, I get it, he thought. He let out a slow breath and looked at the door leading to the examination rooms. Any minute now his name would be called. His heart pounded a little faster. Would the dentist say everything looked fine? Or would this visit turn into something much worse? As Alex stood in the cool, quiet lobby of Bright Smiles Dental Clinic, he forced himself to take slow, deep breaths. He stepped toward the receptionist's desk, his sneakers making a faint squeaking sound on the polished tile floor. Behind the desk sat a friendly-looking woman in her mid-40s with short brown hair and thin-framed glasses perched on her nose. She wore a light blue uniform with the clinic's logo embroidered on the front. She glanced up from her computer screen and smiled warmly. "Good morning. Do you have an appointment?" Alex cleared his throat, hoping his voice wouldn't crack. Yeah. My name is Alex Carter. I have an appointment at 10 a.m. The receptionist nodded and began typing on her keyboard, the click, click, click sound filling the quiet space. After a few moments, she looked up again and gave a reassuring nod. "All right, Alex, you're all checked in. The dentist will see you shortly. In the meantime, could you please fill out this form?" She slid a clipboard across the desk toward him, along with a black pen. Alex took it with slightly sweaty hands and muttered, "Sure, thanks." He turned away and scanned the waiting area, looking for an empty seat. Alex sat down in one of the blue cushioned chairs near the corner of the room. The seat was firm but comfortable, and he leaned back slightly, adjusting himself as he placed the clipboard on his lap. He glanced at the form, standard stuff. Name, Alex Carter, easy. Date of birth, he quickly wrote it down. Address, he hesitated for a second, then filled it in. Medical history, do I have allergies? Nope. Surgeries? Number braces? No, but maybe soon. He sighed. The idea of braces still lingered in the back of his mind. As he continued filling in the details, his mind wandered to the last time he had been at a dentist's office. It had been nearly a year ago. The visit had been quick, just a cleaning. But today, what if they find a cavity? He shook his head, forcing himself to focus. After a few more scribbles, he finally finished the form. He set the pen down on the clipboard, staring at his name written in blue ink. For a brief moment, he considered double-checking his answers, but instead, he stood up and returned the clipboard to the receptionist. "All done?" she asked, taking the form from him. "Yeah," he said with a small nod. "Great. Just have a seat, and the dentist will call you shortly." Alex sighed and walked back to his seat. The waiting room was small but comfortable. The walls were painted a calming shade of light blue, with a few framed pictures of smiling people showing off perfect white teeth. The soft hum of the air conditioner filled the space, and the faint scent of mint and disinfectant lingered in the air. To his right, a young boy, maybe 5 years old, sat cross-legged on the floor, pushing a small red toy car back and forth. Each time the wheels rolled across the floor, they made a soft rrr sound. The boy's mother, seated nearby, was flipping through a magazine, occasionally glancing at her son with a patient smile. Across from Alex, an older man in a gray suit sat with his arms crossed, staring at the wall as if deep in thought. Every now and then, he would check his watch, tapping his foot slightly. The clock on the wall ticked slowly. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Alex leaned back in his chair and tried to relax, but his nerves wouldn't let him. He glanced at a stack of magazines on the small table beside him. Old issues of National Geographic, Reader's Digest, and Healthy Smiles Monthly. He reached out and picked up one at random. Healthy Smiles Monthly. The cover featured a smiling woman holding a toothbrush with bold text that read, "The secret to strong, cavity-free teeth." Alex groaned internally and put the magazine back down. That was the last thing he wanted to think about right now. Instead, he pulled out his phone, unlocked it, and scrolled through his notifications. Nothing interesting. He opened his messages and considered texting his mom. "Alex, hey, I'm at the dentist. I'll let you know how it goes." After a moment, she replied, "Mom, good. Be brave, sweetie. You'll be fine." Alex smiled a little, but still felt uneasy. Then suddenly, he heard it. Bzz. A loud drilling sound echoed from behind the closed door, leading to the treatment rooms. Alex immediately stiffened, his mind filled with images of sharp metal tools, bright overhead lights, and that strange suction tube they always put in your mouth. Then he heard a muffled conversation between a dentist and a patient. "Okay, open wide. That's it. Hold still for a moment. You might feel a little pressure." Another loud bees followed. Alex swallowed hard. Next came the sound of the suction tube. Slurp, slurp. A few moments later, there was a slight clink, the sound of metal tools being placed on a tray. A woman, probably the patient, coughed lightly and then sighed. Was she in pain? Or was she relieved that it was over? Alex shifted in his seat, his fingers tightening around the edges of his phone. Maybe it won't be that bad, he thought. Maybe they'll just clean my teeth and let me go. But before he could comfort himself any further, the receptionist called out his name. "Alex Carter? The dentist is ready for you." His heart skipped a beat. This was it. He took one last deep breath, stood up, and walked toward the door. What would the dentist say? The door to the examination room opened, and a tall woman in a white coat stepped inside. She had short, curly brown hair and wore a warm, reassuring smile. Her name tag read, "Dr. Emily Miller, DDS." She extended her hand. "Hello, Alex. It's great to see you today. How are you feeling?" Alex hesitated for a second before admitting, "A little nervous." Dr. Miller chuckled kindly. "That's completely normal. A lot of people feel a little nervous before a checkup. But I promise you, we're going to take great care of you today. My goal is to make sure your teeth stay healthy and strong." "Sound good?" Alex nodded, though his stomach still felt a little tight. "Great. Now let's get started, Doctor," Miller said, guiding him toward the examination chair. Alex sat down in the big adjustable chair covered in smooth leather. It was surprisingly comfortable. As he settled in, Dr. Miller pressed a button on the side, and the chair slowly reclined backward with a soft whirring sound. The bright overhead light tilted downward, shining directly onto his face. He blinked as his eyes adjusted to the brightness. "Let me know if the light is too bright for you," Dr. Miller said as she reached for a pair of blue latex gloves. "It's okay," Alex mumbled, staring at the ceiling. On the white tiles above him, he noticed a small, colorful sticker of a smiling tooth holding a toothbrush. It was obviously meant to comfort kids, but for some reason, it made him feel a little better too. Dr. Miller snapped on her gloves with a slight snap and picked up a small round mirror attached to a long handle. "All right, let's take a look," she said gently. She moved the mirror around inside Alex's mouth, tilting it carefully to check his teeth from different angles. "Hmm, everything's looking good so far," she murmured as she examined his molars. Alex tried to relax, but his mind kept racing. What if I have a cavity? What if I need a filling? Dr. Miller then paused, tapping one of his back teeth lightly with another tool. "Ah, I see a little cavity here," she said. Alex's heart sank. "Nothing to worry about," Dr. Miller added quickly. "It's very small, and we caught it early. I'll explain what we can do about it after we finish your cleaning. For now, let's make sure your teeth are sparkling clean." Dr. Miller turned to her assistant, who handed her a small buzzing tool with a spinning head. "All right, Alex, we're going to clean your teeth now. You might hear a buzzing sound, and it might feel a little funny, but it won't hurt, okay?" Alex gave a hesitant thumbs up. The moment the tool touched his teeth, a soft bzzz filled his ears. The sensation was strange. The spinning head moved across the surface of his teeth, scrubbing away any plaque or buildup. It didn't hurt, but it did tickle slightly. As the tool moved from one tooth to the next, a mixture of minty paste and water filled his mouth. The taste was strong, fresh but a little gritty. "All right, let's rinse," Dr. Miller said, handing him a small cup of water. Alex swished the cool liquid around his mouth and spit it into the sink beside the chair. "Now let's get those back teeth nice and clean, Doctor," Miller said, switching to a different tool. This time the sensation was different. It felt like a gentle scraping against his teeth, as if she was removing tiny bits of food that had been stuck there for weeks. Occasionally, Dr. Miller's assistant used a small suction tube to remove excess saliva from his mouth. Slurp. The suction tube was weird. Alex could feel it pulling at the inside of his cheek, like a tiny vacuum cleaner. "Doing okay?" Dr. Miller asked. "Mm-hmm," Alex mumbled with his mouth open. "Almost done," she assured him. Finally, she put the tool down and leaned back with a satisfied nod. "That's it. Your teeth are nice and clean now. One last step before we finish." Dr. Miller reached for a small tray containing a clear gel. "We're going to apply a fluoride treatment now. This will help protect your teeth and keep them strong. It only takes a minute." She picked up a small brush and began painting the fluoride gel onto his teeth. It had a mild, slightly sweet flavor, like bubble gum mixed with mint. "All right, Alex, try not to eat or drink anything for the next 30 minutes so the fluoride can do its job, okay?" "Okay," he said, sitting up as she moved the chair back into its upright position. Dr. Miller pulled off her gloves and smiled. "You did great today. Your teeth are in good shape, and with a little extra brushing and flossing, that tiny cavity won't be a problem. We'll talk about what to do next, but for now, you're all set." Alex let out a breath of relief. Maybe the dentist wasn't so bad after all. Dr. Miller turned off the overhead light and pulled down her mask, giving Alex a reassuring smile. "All right, Alex. I have some news," she said gently. Alex's stomach tightened. "Oh, you have a small cavity on one of your back molars, But don't worry, it's very minor, and because we caught it early, it'll be quick and easy to fix. Alex frowned. A cavity? He always tried to brush his teeth, but maybe he hadn't been doing it well enough. Does it hurt? He asked. Not at all right now, but if we leave it alone, it could get bigger and cause problems later, Dr. Miller explained. She picked up a small plastic model of a tooth and pointed to a tiny dark spot on it. See? Cavities happen when bacteria break down the enamel on your teeth. Right now, yours is still small, so fixing it is easy. We're just going to clean out the area and fill it with a special material that protects your tooth. The whole process will only take a few minutes. Alex hesitated. Will it hurt? Dr. Miller smiled warmly. Not at all. I'm going to numb the area first so you won't feel a thing. I promise. He took a deep breath. Okay, let's do it. Dr. Miller reached for a small syringe and held it up. All right, Alex, before we start, I'm going to give you a little numbing medicine. You might feel a tiny pinch, but after that, you won't feel anything at all. Alex tensed up. He wasn't a fan of needles. Dr. Miller noticed and said, I have a little trick to make it easier. Let's count down together, okay? She gently tapped his gum with a cotton swab soaked in numbing gel. It had a strange, slightly bitter taste, but within seconds his gum started feeling tingly and weird. Now I'll give you the injection. You might feel a tiny pinch. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Alex braced himself, but to his surprise, the pinch was barely noticeable. There. It's done, Doctor, Miller announced cheerfully. Wait, that was it? Alex asked, blinking. That was it, she said with a grin. Within a minute, his mouth started to feel funny. His cheek and tongue were getting numb. He poked the side of his face with his finger and giggled. It feels weird, Dr. Miller laughed. That's completely normal. It'll wear off in a couple of hours, but for now, your tooth won't feel a thing. Are you ready to fix that cavity? Alex nodded, feeling much more relaxed. Dr. Miller picked up a small, high-pitched tool. All right, Alex, now I'm going to clean out the cavity. You'll hear a buzzing sound, but you won't feel anything, okay? Alex nodded. The moment the tool touched his tooth, he heard a loud bees. The vibration felt a little strange, but there was no pain, just a slight pressure. Still doing okay? Dr. Miller asked. Mm-hmm, Alex mumbled. As the drill worked, he smelled a faint burning scent. Not bad, just different. After a few minutes, Dr. Miller paused. All done with that part. Now we'll put in the filling to seal up your tooth. She reached for a small container of tooth-colored material and used a tiny tool to press it into the cleaned-out space. This is a special filling that hardens when we shine a blue light on it, she explained. A bright light flashed for a few seconds. Almost done. Now let's smooth everything out. She used another tool to gently polish the filling, making sure it fit perfectly with the rest of his tooth. After a few final touches, she leaned back and smiled. That's it, Alex. Your cavity is all fixed. How does it feel? Alex ran his tongue over the tooth. Weird, but good, Dr. Miller chuckled. That's normal. The numbness will wear off soon. But no more cavity, just a strong, healthy tooth. Alex grinned. Thanks, Dr. Miller. You're very welcome. Now let's talk about how to keep those teeth super clean so you don't get any more cavities. Dr. Miller took off her gloves and gave Alex a big smile. Well, Alex, you did an amazing job today, she said. Alex sat up slowly, still feeling a little funny from the numbness in his cheek. He touched his face. Yep, still weird. That wasn't so bad, he admitted. See, I told you, Dr. Miller said with a chuckle. And now you have a healthy tooth again. The dental assistant handed Alex a small cup of water. Go ahead and rinse your mouth, she said. Alex took a sip and swished it around. But when he tried to spit, he missed the sink a little, because half of his mouth was still numb. Oops, he mumbled, embarrassed. Dr. Miller laughed kindly. That happens to a lot of people. The numbness will go away in about 2 hours. Just be careful not to bite your cheek. Dr. Miller pulled up a chart showing healthy teeth. Now, Alex, to keep your teeth strong and avoid more cavities, here are 3 golden rules. She held up one finger. Number 1, brush your teeth at least twice a day, once in the morning and once before bed. And don't just rush through it. Brush for 2 full minutes to make sure you clean every tooth. Alex nodded. 2 minutes. Got it. She held up a second finger. Number 2, try to eat less sugar. Sugary foods and drinks, like candy and soda, can cause cavities if you don't clean your teeth properly. Alex frowned. Less sugar? But I love chocolate. Doctor, Miller laughed, reading his expression. That doesn't mean you can never have sweets. Just enjoy them in moderation and always brush your teeth afterward. Alex smiled. That sounds fair. Finally, Dr. Miller held up a third finger. Number 3, make sure you visit the dentist every 6 months for a checkup. That way we can catch any problems early, just like we did today. Alex's mom, who had just stepped into the room, nodded. We'll make sure he comes back on time, she said. Alex grinned. I'll do my best, Doctor. Miller. I know you will, Dr. Miller said. Alex and his mom walked back to the reception desk. The receptionist smiled. All done, Alex? How did it go? She asked. Not bad at all, Alex replied proudly. That's great. Let's schedule your next appointment in 6 months. She clicked on her computer and looked at the calendar. How about April 10th at 10 a.m.? Alex glanced at his mom, who nodded. Sounds good. Perfect. You're all set. Here's your appointment card, the receptionist said, handing Alex a small white card. Alex took it and put it in his pocket. See you in 6 months, the receptionist said cheerfully. Alex smiled. See you then. As he and his mom walked out of the clinic, he took a deep breath of fresh air. The sun was shining, and the day suddenly felt a lot better. You did great today, his mom said, patting his back. Alex nodded. Yeah, maybe the dentist isn't so scary after all. As they headed home, Alex felt a new sense of responsibility. I'm going to be extra careful with my teeth from now on, he thought. No more rushing through brushing, no more skipping flossing, and maybe, just maybe, fewer sweets. Because now he knew. Taking care of his teeth meant fewer visits to the dentist's chair, and that was a goal worth smiling about. Congratulations! You have just completed an entire listening practice story in English. Well done. By following Alex's journey to the dentist, you have not only learned new vocabulary but also improved your ability to understand natural conversations in everyday situations. Listening to stories like this helps you get familiar with real-life dialogues, common phrases, and the way English is spoken in daily life. The more you listen, the more confident you will become in understanding and speaking English. But don't stop here. Keep practicing. Try listening to this story again and see if you can understand even more details a second time. You can also challenge yourself by repeating some of the sentences aloud to practice your pronunciation. If you enjoyed this story, why not listen to another one? We have many more stories to help you improve your English step by step. Remember, learning a language takes time, but every small step you take brings you closer to fluency. Keep going, keep listening, and most importantly, keep enjoying the process. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next story.